What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. Appreciate you guys tuning in today. Going to be going over Week 5 predictions. I got 14 games on the slate here. A lot of really exciting games on this weekend. I'll be at one of these games. Talk about that when I get there. But there are a lot of really important, really interesting, and really pivotal games coming up this weekend. So really looking forward to this slate. Again, I got 14 games on here that should be 14, I guess, of the more exciting games, the more pivotal games there on the slate this week. And before we move on, make sure you guys are subscribed, you like the video, comment down below your predictions for these games or more games that maybe I didn't include on this list. Just any way you can help support my channel really does mean a lot to me. I'm going to try to keep this video a little shorter, but let's go ahead and dive on into Week 5 predictions. 14 games to go, and we're going to start with one that's actually on tonight as of uploading this video. We got the Washington Huskies and the UCLA Bruins. Both these teams have started off 4-0, are 1-0 in conference play, and one of these teams is going to have to come away with a loss after this one. And, well, Washington definitely looks like the better team up to this point. The Huskies have the #1 passing offense in the country, and the Bruins secondary, very, very suspect. So this is a UCLA team that's going to have to find ways to, account for Michael Penix, and in my opinion, one of the most underrated wide receiver rooms in the entire nation with the Washington Huskies. So that's definitely going to be a huge factor in this game, seeing if the UCLA Bruins are going to be able to slow down this passing attack that Washington is able to bring to the table. It's performed really well in the past couple of weeks against Michigan State and Stanford. They're going to look to do the same thing here. By the way, all lines and odds are as of recording this video. DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson for UCLA, is going to need his O-line to give him some time there in the pocket. This UCLA offensive line has not been the best this season. In fact, UCLA can make improvements all around the field, but specifically in this game, Washington's got some guys that they're going to be able to get in the backfield here of UCLA, and, well, UCLA is going to need to be able to have this offensive line protect Dorian Thompson-Robinson, not only giving him time to throw, to hit those deep shots, but also giving him some time to maybe open up a hole for Dorian Thompson-Robinson to run through, as DTR likes to do as well. Both teams rank inside the top 25 in both offensive and defensive efficiency, so this is going to be a very, very good game. It's going to be, in my opinion, one of the better games that we're going to see this week. And don't count out UCLA here in this game. UCLA has what it takes to be able to win this game. And if UCLA is able to win this game, probably going to find themselves in the top 25 the week after there as well. As UCLA has needed some late finishes to get past some teams that they should have been able to beat. But UCLA is starting to find their rhythm as of late. But I think Washington is playing too good of football right now. I am going with the Huskies. This is, of course, a Friday game. It's going to be 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'd stay up to watch this one. This is going to be a very entertaining game on ESPN. I do have the Huskies pulling this game out by 2, but UCLA, I very well could see them moving forward here, being the undefeated team to come out of this one. But what a pivotal game this is in the Pac-12, and I think Washington's going to be able to pull away here and win this one. I think with the passing attack of Michael Penix, they're going to be able to get this one done. Texas Tech and Kansas State face in what's going to be a really interesting game and what could be a really pivotal game in the Big 12 Conference, as Texas Tech's passing game with Donovan Smith has been settling in, and Donovan Smith has been getting more and more comfortable with this system, and the passing game has been good. It's been really good, and it helped beat Texas last week, right? It was a passing game that was able to get into the Texas secondary, and that's how Texas Tech was able to pull off that win last week. And also, again, the play of Donovan Smith has been really good, but when you look back at the game against Houston, which as of right now is Texas Tech's only loss, the one thing that killed them was the passing attack was moving, but they turned the ball over, and that's something they just can't afford to do against Kansas State because Tech's defense has struggled against the run so far this year, and it really struggled against Bijan Robinson last year. Well, enter Deuce Vaughn, one of the best running backs in the country, along with Bijan Robinson and Adrian Martinez, a quarterback that is not afraid to tuck it and run. So this is definitely going to be a very hard defensive challenge for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And speaking of Adrian Martinez, is he going to be able to keep playing at the level that he is, right? Kansas State really fed off of his performance last week, and that was a huge performance from Adrian Martinez, a huge reason why Kansas State was able to go out there and win that game, right? This is the Texas Tech defense that's going to have their hands full today, but Donovan Smith is capable of hitting those shots down the field, and I think he's going to be able to hit some of those shots downfield here. Meanwhile, when you look at Kansas State, this is the team that's going to try to build off of that win there, and these are teams that upset two teams last week. Of course, Texas Tech beat Texas, and Kansas State, of course, we all know, beat, at the time, a top 10 Oklahoma team. Kansas State is getting 7.5 points here, and I'm going to stick with Kansas State. I do think Texas Tech covers this spread. This is, of course, a noon game on Saturday on ESPN+, and I'm going with Kansas State here to win this one. I like the Wildcats by 4. I just think Texas Tech maybe makes one too many mistakes. Kansas State's able to take advantage, and they win a close game. Another game in the Big 12 to keep your eye on, Oklahoma and TCU. Oklahoma's only getting 6 against the Horned Frogs, with that over and under being 69, and a lot of offense is going to come in this game, as both teams are really, really, really good offensively. However, TCU hasn't necessarily been tested a whole lot. Yes, they played SMU last week. They were able to come away with a win there in that category, but the Horned Frogs defense is by far going to face their toughest test of the year when they have to play this Oklahoma offense, which with Dylan Gabriel, Eric Gray, Marvin Mims, lots of other weapons out there on the offensive end. This is an Oklahoma offense that has been flying, and it's been clicking on all cylinders. It's looked fantastic. Now, TCU is definitely going to have the offense to test this Sooner defense there as well, and again, the recipe for success for Kansas State last week was just keep scoring points, and they were forcing turnovers there as well. So TCU is a team that's going to have to follow the mentality and the game plan that Kansas State did when they beat Oklahoma last week. But Oklahoma is going to be looking for that game last week to be a wake-up call, not for this to be a game that the Sooners are going to hang, not for last week's game, I should say, where the Sooners are going to want to hang their heads and mope about it, right? They're going to want to learn from it, and they're going to want to move on, and I think that's what Oklahoma does. I like the Sooners to win this game here. I think this offense is too dynamic, and the defense has some playmakers on it. It's going to step up, make a play here and there, and I think Oklahoma is going to relatively easily be able to get past TCU in the Horned Frogs. This is another noon game. This one's on ABC, and I like Oklahoma to come out of this one here. 45-31 is my final score prediction. I definitely think TCU is going to be able to put up some points here in this one, but Oklahoma's offense is playing too well, and I even think it played well in that game against Kansas State, and I think Oklahoma's defense steps up, makes the plays that it has to pull out this game, something it couldn't do last week against Kansas State. So Oklahoma gets back on track here with a win over TCU to knock another unbeaten off the board. The Purdue Boilermakers and Minnesota Golden Gophers. Speaking of unbeatens, how about the Golden Gophers, huh? 21st in the country, 4-0, and Kirk Soraka's offense is on fire. There is no stopping what Minnesota is throwing at teams right now, and they're doing it at a very balanced rate. Mo Ibrahim is back, is healthy, and he looks phenomenal. He looks incredible and definitely could be the leading rusher in America once it's all said and done. And Tanner Morgan, with his old offensive coordinator back, is really starting to find his groove, right? He's really starting to find his groove. Now, sadly, Chris Bell is out for the season. That's a big loss for this Minnesota team, but Tanner Morgan is finding some other weapons out there for Minnesota. So, and being able to find those weapons is going to be important here against a team like Purdue. The Golden Gophers boast the nation's #1 defense, which they've been able to stop opponents, and they held Michigan State to, I believe, like under 250 yards, something crazy like that last week. But Purdue's got a very dynamic offense, or at least they do when Aiden O'Connell is that quarterback, and Purdue is dealing with injuries. Not only Aiden O'Connell at quarterback, but a lot of players on that defense, especially in that secondary, Purdue is having to deal with injuries there. If Aiden O'Connell is out in this game, I don't see a way Minnesota necessarily drops this one. If Aiden O'Connell plays in this game, Purdue can definitely make this game interesting. Charlie Jones has the most receptions in America, I believe, with 41, and he's playing some really good football right now. Purdue is really good offensively. I just think Minnesota is also playing well offensively. The uncertainty of Aiden O'Connell, whether he's going to play, whether he doesn't play, and the fact that Minnesota's defense is just playing tremendously well right now, which is why I'm going with the Golden Gophers. I do think a line of 12 is too high. I think Purdue easily covers that. This is another noon game on ESPN2, but I am going with the Golden Gophers to pull out the win against the Purdue Boilermakers. So 2-3 for the Boilermakers, 0-2 in Big Ten play. Not how you want to start the season, but for Minnesota, this is exactly how you want to start the season. This is an important game for both of these teams. Minnesota to get a tiebreaker over a team in the Big Ten West, and for Purdue to really hopefully get some things back on track and start to maybe find their rhythm as they head into Big Ten play, where they're going to need some more wins under their belt. I like Minnesota in this game, though. I think P.J. Fleck has this team playing very, very well, and I like the Golden Gophers to keep on moving on to 5-0. Speaking of undefeated teams, yet again, the Michigan Wolverines are the 4th-ranked team in the country, but they're really going to get a test this week. They got a test last week, and they got pushed to the limit against a pretty good Maryland team. Well, this is an Iowa defense that is going to push Michigan's offense to the limit. Can this Hawkeye defense contain Blake Corum, though? That is the number one thing. Blake Corum was just outstanding last week. He was phenomenal. 243 yards last week, I believe, was the number, give or take a few yards. He was terrific against Maryland, and where J.J. McCarthy really couldn't seem to find a whole lot moving, really had to rely on Blake Corum there. Blake Corum got the job done, and that's not saying McCarthy played bad. I thought McCarthy played well last week. It's just Blake Corum really was able to get this offense moving and really churn things for the Michigan attack. Iowa is a team, though, that, well, we all know the story with this offense, right? Spencer Petras, not a very good quarterback up to this point, has more interceptions than touchdowns, and only 2 picks, but only 1 touchdown, 500-something yards over 4 games. Hasn't been pretty for Spencer Petras, but especially if this offense can get healthy and maybe find some things here in this game, Iowa's going to be a lot more in this game than a lot of people may think. And Iowa's defense, yes, you have to contain Blake Corum, and that's probably going to be Iowa's number one job, or at least number one worry in this game. But J.J. McCarthy is capable of running the football too, and he's got a really, really talented arm. So this is the Hawkeye team that's going to have their hands full with Michigan's offense, and Michigan's defense is still really, really good. And for Iowa offense that is not looking the best up to this point, it is on paper a mismatch on that side of the ball. And again, will this Hawkeye offense get going? What I've learned from my years of watching college football is you can never count out Kirk Ferentz at home. It's just something you cannot do. And I'm not going to count out Kirk Ferentz at home here in this game. But I do not see a way that Michigan loses this game on their own. I think Michigan is way too talented to lose this game. Iowa, especially offensively, is just not playing well. And while this Iowa defense may give this game a little bit more of a scare than Michigan would like, Michigan still comes out of this game with a win. This is the big noon game on Fox, and I have Michigan pulling away by 7, although I realistically could see Michigan pulling away with this thing by 14 or more. They absolutely fleeced Iowa in the Big Ten championship game last year, and they could do the same thing here. However, I am expecting a closer game than what we saw in the Big Ten championship game last year. But regardless, I think any way you slice it, Michigan comes away with a win here in this one. Ooh, how about this? A marquee matchup in the SEC as the Kentucky Wildcats and Ole Miss Rebels are going to be facing off. Both teams are 4-0, and both teams are looking to gain some momentum here in SEC play. These are probably 2 of the better teams in the SEC, but a couple things to take note of when watching this one. First of all, I think that line of Mississippi by 7 is way too high. Chris Rodriguez returns for the Wildcats, which means that this Kentucky rushing attack is going to get better, is going to improve. It's already been solid without Chris Rodriguez there, and at times it's actually really struggled. So having Chris Rodriguez back in this game is going to be huge for Kentucky, and that's going to lead to a very close game, and it's going to give Kentucky just another edge here in this one. Jackson Dart, though, is going to have to make some throws. This is the Kentucky secondary that has played really well against teams like Florida. And yes, Kentucky, I know, has struggled in a couple games this year, mainly against the MAC opponents on their schedule, Miami, Ohio, Northern Illinois, teams like that. But this team played really well against Florida. Jackson Dart, this Ole Miss rushing attack has been really good up to this point, and that's not the concern. Jackson Dart really maybe can get some better things going, can really be able to throw the ball better. And Jackson Dart, I think, is going to have to do that in order for Ole Miss to come out with a win here in this one, because this Kentucky defense can play really well, and they have some good pass rushers. They have a pretty solid secondary, so Jackson Dart's going to need to be able to hit some shots in this game. But back to Kentucky. For this last point, their offensive line needs to improve. Not only with Chris Rodriguez coming back, being able to open up those holes for him to be able to run through, but also with protecting Will Levis, right? Will Levis is the best quarterback on the field in this game. Out of him and Jackson Dart, Will Levis is the better quarterback, and he can absolutely make some throws. But this offensive line has really struggled. I think it gave up, 4 or 5 sacks last week to Northern Illinois. So this is definitely an offensive line that's going to need to find their improvements, and definitely going to need to be an offensive line that's going to need to give Will Levis some time. And while I think Kentucky plays a really good game, I just think Ole Miss wins this one. That is purely what I think. I think both teams are going to play a very good game, but I give home field advantage and the win to Ole Miss here in this one. So noon game on ESPN. I do think Ole Miss is going to come away with the win here. I think Jackson Dart's going to make some throws. I don't know if Chris Rodriguez is going to look fully 100%, not saying he's not healthy, but again, being out for 4 games with the suspension, I don't know that Chris Rodriguez going to come in and put up some big numbers like he has against Ole Miss in the past. So I am going with the Rebels here. Would it surprise me if Kentucky won this game? No, not in the slightest bit. In fact, I think Kentucky is way more than capable of winning this one, but my prediction goes to the Rebels. The Oregon State Beavers and Utah Utes are going to be playing what could be a really important game in the Pac-12. Now, there are a couple of things to keep note of when you watch this one. First of all, this is definitely going to be a very interesting game. Oregon State coming off an almost upset of USC from last week. But, man, Utah is just playing angry. After that loss to Florida, they have fleeced their past 3 opponents, and they're really looking to make it a 4th here against Oregon State. But unfortunate news for Utah. You do have Brant Keithy out for the year with an injury. So how is that going to impact this offense, right? Dalton Kincaid is going to get a lot of those snaps now at the tight end position. So how will Utah use him in that offense, and how will Utah use the wide receivers that they have with Cam Rising at quarterback? Tavion Thomas has been playing well. Cam Rising has been playing well. Utah, this is definitely going to need to be a game where Utah needs to find some groove in the wide receiver room there as well. And moving on to the Oregon State quarterback situation with Chance Nolan, he's got to play better, right? Last week against USC, he was okay, but turned the ball over just way too much. He's got to limit the turnovers in this game, and especially with their tight end, Musgrave, I believe is his name, out for a lengthy period of time. He's going to need some wide receiver help here in this one. So he's going to need to get the wide receivers way more involved, and Chance Nolan going to need to be one of the difference makers here in this game if Oregon State's going to want to pull out the win. But on the other side of the ball, you have the Beaver defense that played a really good game last week against USC. They played a really good game. Well, they're going to need another game like they played last week in order to pull off this upset here, because Utah is firing on all cylinders, and I don't know if playing angry is necessarily the right thing to say, but I mean, Utah is playing with some energy, with some passion, and I don't see them dropping this game here to Oregon State. I got Utah winning by double digits. I got them winning by 14. Oregon State, I think, is a program that's trending in the right direction, and yes, they almost pulled off that win against USC last week. But I think this is a different animal when you have to go on the road, play in Utah. This is the 2 o'clock game on the Pac-12 network, so sadly only those with the Pac-12 network are going to be able to put this one on. But, I mean, I'm really excited for this game. I definitely think that both these teams can have some chance to do some really good things this year. But Utah's just playing with such a fire and such an energy. I don't see Utah dropping this game to Oregon State. How about this for a pivotal matchup in the Big 12? The Iowa Cyclones and the Kansas Jayhawks. The undefeated Kansas Jayhawks as well. And Iowa State, of course, coming off a loss to Baylor. But hey, they find themselves 3 point favorites, going into Lawrence. However, we got to take a look at Kansas quarterback Jalon Daniels. He is playing like a Heisman candidate, and I got the pleasure of watching him in person last week. And Jalon Daniels, he is a stud. He has the highest QBR in the nation right now, I believe around 97.5, 98. He's been playing lights out. He's insane. And Jalon Daniels definitely can lead this Kansas team to do some really, really nice things later down the line, especially in this game here against Iowa State. However, Kansas is going to see something that they haven't seen all year, a good, solid run defense. And Kansas, being an option-style offense and not really facing a good, solid run defense yet, that's going to prove to be, that's definitely going to prove to be a huge factor here in this game as Iowa State brings a really good run defense forward. And this is an Iowa State team that's going to be able to get pressure on Jalon Daniels as well when he drops back to pass. And is going to be able to get in the backfield more often than not with playmakers like Will McDonald and others on that defense. But the concern with Iowa State, well, not necessarily concern if you'd say, but the thing with Iowa State is they got to be able to stretch the field against Kansas. Something I noticed when I was in Lawrence watching that Kansas game last week was Kansas had a lot of struggles defending outside of the hash marks, which is really concerning for this Kansas team, because as soon as you play an offense that's going to spread the field on you, this Kansas defense is not going to be able to do a whole lot. They struggled last weekend against Duke. Imagine the struggles they're going to be able to face when they play an Iowa State team that has a lot of better playmakers on it. Aiden Hutchinson, Jarrell Brock, and especially the quarterback there in Hunter Deckers, which is why, sorry Kansas fans, as much as I realistically inside hope that Kansas is able to pull this one out, and what a great story it would be, I have to pick Iowa State here in this one. It's just Iowa State has everything they need to counter Kansas's weaknesses, and I think that's going to play into Iowa State's favor really well. So I think this is going to be a tough, hard-fought game, but I think Iowa State's going to come out of Lawrence with a huge win here. In Kansas, I think going to pick up that first loss on the year. The Wake Forest Demon Deacons and Florida State Seminoles are playing in the top 25 matchup in the ACC, and Sam Hartman is lighting up stat sheets yet again. Look at last week against Clemson. This was a Clemson team that was supposed to handle Wake Forest, especially defensively. Not necessarily offensively, but defensively. This was supposed to be a Clemson defense that, wasn't going to give much leeway to Sam Hartman and company, yet they did just that. And Sam Hartman, A.T. Perry, and a lot of other weapons there played really well in that game against Clemson. And they actually ended up forcing overtime and nearly won the game there as well. Just a mistake towards the end, throwing a pick. And that's what led Wake Forest to pick up their first loss on the season. But, no shame. Wake Forest played a really good game, and they're going to take a lot of that into this game against Florida State. Now, Jordan Travis has been a huge difference maker for this Florida State team, and Florida State has had their fair share of tests. Boston College, Louisville can prove at the end of the year to be some solid teams in the ACC, although both are having their struggles right now. And Florida State pulled out a miraculous win against LSU, which, again, LSU almost made a comeback effort of. So this is definitely a Florida State team that is still experiencing their struggles. But the Noles have the edge in the ground game. Florida State is a much better run offense than Wake Forest, and especially with how suspect this Wake Forest defense is, I think that's going to play a huge part in this game. Now, especially with the hurricane rolling through, there's not necessarily supposed to be a lot of weather here in the... Pardon me, let me back up. There's not supposed to be a whole lot of weather forecasting here in this game. Maybe some light rains and things like that, some aftermath from Hurricane Ian that's sweeping through. And by the way, I hope everyone is okay that is involved. I know I've already talked about some things in the state, but I hope everyone is okay there in Florida. That's my PSA message for the day. Stay safe if you are in the path of Hurricane Ian. But getting back to football, talking about Florida State, they definitely have the edge on the ground game. They're a much better rushing team than Wake Forest. but I do think Wake Forest is the better overall offense, yet Florida State has the defense they need to be able to, well, stop Wake Forest offense, right? Florida State has the defense they need to be able to slow down this Wake Forest attack. That's going to play huge in this game. However, I do not think this Florida State program is going to be able to win these types of games quite yet. And I know it's at home, and this is a perfect scenario for Florida State to really elevate this program. And I've gone back and forth with this game so many times, but I finally landed on Wake Forest. This is just such a tough, hard game to predict. But I think Wake Forest is going to come out in this game and proving that, hey, what we did against Clemson last week is who we are. It's here to stay. I think Sam Hartman's going to have another really, really good game. Florida State's defense is nowhere near the level that Clemson's is, although Florida State has been playing some really good defense this year. I think Jordan Travis and company, Trayshawn Ward, they're going to be able to score points here, but maybe it is a late field goal, maybe it's a late touchdown drive, something like that. I do think Wake Forest is going to be able to come out here and pick up the win on the road to get back on track to hopefully getting back to another ACC title. I know everyone in Wake Forest country hope so as well. So I do have Wake Forest winning this game by 1. If Florida State wins, am I going to be shocked? No, not at all. I think Florida State's more than capable of winning this game. And if Florida State does, that's a program-elevating win, much like the win against LSU earlier this year. But Wake Forest, I think, needs this game, and I think gets the win in Tallahassee. The Oklahoma State Cowboys and Baylor Bears are going to be playing in what should be a pretty fun Big 12 matchup. Hey, this is an epic rematch of the Big 12 championship game where Oklahoma State was literally this close to making the college football playoff and getting in and having a shot to take down that number 1 team in Alabama instead of, and then again, you could have had the conversation of should it be Oklahoma State, should it be Cincinnati, right? All those things last year, but they come in 2.5-point underdogs to the Baylor Bears. Now, Oklahoma State did have a bye week last week. They have had a week to prepare for what Baylor's going to throw at them, and what Baylor's going to throw at them is a really stingy defense. But Spencer Sanders has been playing really well this year so far, and he has elevated his game to a new type of level. So Spencer Sanders definitely going to be a big difference maker in this game if Oklahoma State's going to want to walk away with the win. But this Baylor defense, I know how much they lost. This is still a really good defense, and it doesn't let a whole lot get in behind it. So we'll see how that plays into a factor here in this game. And my apologies, Baylor should be 1-0 in conference play, not 0-1. Their one loss was to BYU. They beat Iowa State last week. That's just an error on my part, which I apologize for. But getting back to this game, the Cowboys' defense is really, really good too. So still, even without Jim Knowles, even without some of the better playmakers that they had on last year's team, this is still a good Oklahoma State defense, and it's going to be ready for Blake Shapen and company. However, Blake Shapen and company have also been playing really, really well in a Baylor uniform, and this is going to be a tough, grinded-out type game. It was a really good game in the Big 12 championship last year. It was even a really good regular season game last year, and I expect a lot of really good plays here in this one. There's going to be a lot of fire, a lot of competition, but I'm going with the Baylor Bears to win a close defensive game, much like the Big 12 championship game, and I got Baylor winning this one 23-20. I do think Baylor's very well more than capable of pulling out, or actually Oklahoma State is well more than capable of pulling out this win, but again, if you revert back to my top 25 poll, I got Baylor ranked ahead of Oklahoma State, and I do think Baylor can be a top 10 team. I think this is a top 10 team in Baylor, and I think they end up getting a win against an AP top 10 team in the Oklahoma State Cowboys. This is a 3:30 game on Fox. Tune into this one. I think this one's going to be a lot of fun. Again, Baylor is 1-0 in conference play. I think they're going to move to 2-0 in conference play with the win here against Oklahoma State. How important is this game right here for the Arkansas Razorbacks, right? This is a monumentally important game for the Hogs, and coming off of last week's little bit of a disappointing loss there against Texas A&M, where he hit the top of the goalpost, it bounced back into the end zone. Heartbreak. I have no idea how Bama is getting 17 on Arkansas here. I definitely think it's going to be a much closer game than that. But Bama has still got a lot of holes that Arkansas is well more than capable of exposing. What are those holes? Well, the Hogs secondary, who, yes, is a little beat up. Jalen Catalong being out for the year, and some other guys might not even play. So the Hogs secondary, very beat up, very injured. But this Alabama wide receiver core has not played well up to this point this season. They have had their fair share of struggles so far this year, and Alabama's going to need to fix that here in this game. So, again, Arkansas, even with the injury, still has lots of weapons out there in the secondary, and Bama has yet to really find that number one wide receiver, although Ja'Cory Brooks has really had some good performances. Bama has beat up on U11 Vandy the past couple of weeks. That wide receiver group is going to need to come alive here in this one in order for Alabama to pull out this win. But when you look at Alabama's defense, they have the best player in the nation in Will Anderson. A lot of really good players otherwise on the defensive side of the ball there. Dallas Turner, I know Jordan Battle's questionable to go in this game, but KJ Jefferson going to have to step up his play and make some really big plays if Arkansas is going to want to come out and win here. Arkansas has a pretty good running team there as well. Well, this is a really good group of Arkansas wide receivers, and KJ Jefferson is going to have to take advantage of that and really be able to take some shots down the field here in this one. As far as Bama's other flaw, the Arkansas Razorbacks lead the country in sacks, and Bama's offensive line has been a big weakness up to this point, and that offensive line has got to get better. Again, the Hogs lead the nation in sacks, I believe, with 19 or 20, and Bama's going to need that offensive line to be more physical and be able to push back on this Razorback team. Now, there's no question that the Razorbacks are going to be able to get back to Bryce Young a few times in this game. But I just don't know if Arkansas is going to be able to pull this one out. I think one of two things are going to happen. I think this is either going to be a very close competitive game in which either side is very capable of winning, or Bama very well could go on the road and do Bama things and just absolutely wreck the party in Fayetteville. I will be at this game, and I think it's going to be a very fun atmosphere. I expect Fayetteville to be loud, to be very, very hyped up for this game. Unfortunately, though, I do not think it's a result that they are going to like. I do think Bama wins this game. It's a 3:30 game on CBS. And Arkansas, I do think, makes this one a lot closer than the spread would suggest. But I just think Bama, no, the issues are not going to be perfect and all panned out in this game. But I think they somewhat improve. I think Ja'Cory Brooks may be starting to separate himself as a number one wide receiver. Jermaine Burton is way overdue for a breakout game. And Arkansas, while I think have all the pieces they need to pull off this win against Bama, I just don't think it is going to happen. So I got Bama pulling out this win here by 8 points. A couple more games here left to go. Texas A&M and Mississippi State. This is another key matchup here in the SEC Conference. And, both of these programs here are going to be looking for a fairly substantial win here in conference play. Now, Texas A&M, yes, they beat Miami. Yes, they beat Arkansas back-to-back weeks. Well, we saw what Miami did against Middle Tennessee. They did not look great. We'll see how Arkansas looks against Alabama this next week. Again, I will be in Fayetteville watching that game. Texas A&M still has offensive kinks to work out. They had some very lucky breaks, including that ridiculous fumble return against Arkansas in their previous game that they're not going to be able to rely on here with this Mississippi State team. They just cannot rely on Mississippi State to make the same mistakes that Arkansas did this past week, and for Texas A&M to get the breaks that Mississippi State did last week, it's probably not going to happen 2 weeks in a row. Will Rogers is going to hit deep shots against this Texas A&M team there as well. It's a secondary that hasn't been bad, but hasn't been great yet either. And especially when you look at this Texas A&M offense again with Anaya Smith out, this Aggie offense is going to need a spark from someone not named Devon Achane, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to get it. This Mississippi State offense is really good defensively. They are physical, and they're going to be able to get back to the quarterback there for Texas A&M. I think they're going to get in the backfield, slow down whatever Devon Achane has cooking up back there. And I just don't know in this first game here that Texas A&M is going to be able to find all they need without Anai Smith to pull out the win. Mississippi State is favored by 4, and I'm taking the Bulldogs here to win this game. It's a 4 o'clock game on the SEC Network, and I got the Bulldogs winning this one 26-21. The LSU Tigers and the Auburn Tigers facing off here in another pivotal matchup in the SEC. Lots of pivotal matchups in the SEC this week. LSU is the 8-point favorite for a reason. Ever since that loss to Florida State, LSU has looked pretty good. And Auburn escaped by the skin of their teeth. If Nathaniel Pete hadn't fumbled that ball at the goal line, out of the back of the end zone, probably would have ended up been a scoring drive, and we would be talking about a very different situation here with the Auburn Tigers. And this is the pivotal game for both of these teams. Auburn has got to find something offensively, though. This has been a very stagnant offense up to this point. Weren't able to do much against Penn State. We're not able to do much last weekend against Missouri. And this is an LSU team that has played well on both sides of the ball. So for Auburn, it's about finding something in the offense to be able to come out with a win here. I would watch out for the health of Jaden Daniels, though. He went out with a back injury against New Mexico. Now, from the sounds of it, he's probably going to end up being ready to go here to play against Auburn. But I would watch out for Jaden Daniels. He's been playing some really good football for LSU this year, and we'll see if that continues here, because this is an LSU team that, I mean, quite frankly, is just getting better week after week after week. In that Florida State game, Jaden Daniels almost led a comeback effort. And then, of course, we all know what happened with the extra point and things like that. But this is an LSU team that is definitely going to be needing this win. Auburn probably needs this win more, but LSU has the run game that's going to be able to take over Jordan-Hare Stadium. And I think that's the big difference here, as I do have the LSU Tigers beating the Auburn Tigers by a score of 27-14. I just think Auburn's really going to struggle in this game again offensively. They haven't shown me anything otherwise that would prove that this is a pretty solid offensive team. I'm going with the Tigers here to pull out this one by 13. All right, and the last game on the slate here, NC State and Clemson. Ooh, the game of the week in my opinion. I think this is going to be a very, very fun game to watch. And these are two teams right now in the ACC that, quite frankly, these are definitely two teams that are going to compete for a spot in the ACC title game, and it starts right now. Clemson already has a one-up on Wake. If they can get a one-up on NC State here as well, this is going to be a huge win for Clemson. And they finally started to find their offense last week. DJ Uiagalelei started to show flashes of what he played like in 2020. He was lights out last week. But this NC State defense is a lot tougher than what Clemson saw out of Wake Forest last week. So this NC State team definitely provides more of a defensive challenge for Clemson. This NC State defense has been criticized in the early season, but over the past couple of weeks, they've looked really good. They've played some really good football on the defensive side, and NC State has the defense to be able to disrupt this Clemson offense that still may be trying to work out some of the bells and whistles of what is happening in the offensive room. Can Devin Leary make enough plays against this Clemson defense? Clemson's defense got torched against Sam Hartman and company, and again, this is nowhere near as good of an NC State offense as you see with Wake Forest. Is Devin Leary going to be able to take enough shots, make enough plays downfield, or even the running game for NC State be able to get through that defensive front seven for Clemson? Is this NC State offense going to be able to make enough plays to pull out with an upset victory here? And with weather permitting, of course, with the hurricane and conditions might be a little rough out there, doesn't seem like they're going to move this game out of Death Valley. Well, the unexpected turnovers and that battle could be massive in deciding this game. And whichever team ends up with the most turnovers, probably not going to have a great shot of winning this game here. But when I look at both these teams here, I probably see the two best teams in the ACC. And I think this is going to be a dogfight every single play, every single snap, every single drive. I think this is going to be a very, very fun, entertaining game to watch. And NC State's definitely a team that is capable of winning this game. They may need some things to go their way, though, and I think Clemson overall just going to be maybe a little bit more motivated to come and pull out this win. Show people that, hey, last year, that's not us. This year, it's different, and Clemson's starting to find that offense, and if the defense can get back on track this week, this should be a win for the Clemson Tigers, and that is what I am predicting here. This is a primetime game on ABC. College game day is going to be here. 27-24 is what I have here. The Clemson Tigers, I do believe, will beat the NC State Wolfpack in a very pivotal game in the ACC Conference. And that is going to do it for my Week 5 predictions. Again, lots of good games on the slate. Some games I didn't even cover. So let me know your predictions for these games. And, hey, let me know your predictions for some other games down in the comments section below. Really appreciate you guys watching again. Hey, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. I know these prediction videos are long, but I appreciate you guys sticking with me, watching all the way through. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. I'm off to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy your college football weekend. See all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.